Thriving under King Thror, the Dwarves of Erebor prospered greatly from their mining operations and friendly trade relations with neighboring powers. Yet as was often the case for their people, excessive wealth brought about their doom, attracting the attention of the northern dragon Smaug the Terrible, who attacked the Lonely Mountain in 2770 TA, claiming their treasure as his own. Fleeing for their lives, some of Durin's folk joined their kin in the Iron Hills, while others followed King Thror to the Dunland Hills, where they lived in poverty and struggled to survive. By 2790, King Thror grew disheartened by the state of his people, and so gifted his son Thrain the last of the 7 dwarven rings of power and a map to the Lonely Mountain, before departing on a quest to their ancestral homeland of Khazad Dûm, now called Moria. Despite the danger from the Orcs and Durin's Bane, Thror proudly marched through the Eastern Gate alone, while his friend Nar waited for his return. A few days later, Nar learned Thror was captured by the Orcs, tortured and beheaded, with the name Azog carved into his forehead. Naming himself the new king of Moria, Azog the Defiler furthered this insult by giving Nar a small bag of coins to serve as a messenger, warning of death for any who ventured onto his lands. As he departed, Nar saw Thror's body hacked into pieces and fed to the crows. Informing Thrain of all that occurred, the new king sat in silence for 7 days before rising furiously to proclaim, "This cannot be borne." Not only did Thrain send for the armies of Durin's folk, but he also called upon the other dwarven clans scattered across Middle-earth, each of whom responded by sending armies to avenge the fallen king. A proud and determined people, they spent the next 3 years gathering their forces before finally invading the Misty Mountains through Mount Gundabad, purging the northern half of the mountains down to the Gladden River. Excelling in underground combat, the dwarves inflicted massive casualties upon the orcs of the Misty Mountains, but paid a heavy price for their victories, losing over half their army in the fighting. The 6-year campaign ultimately culminated in the Battle of Azanulbizar in 2799, when Lord Nine and his son Dain secured victory for the dwarves by bringing reinforcements from the Iron Hills. Among the many casualties, the king's second son Frerin and kinsman Fundin were killed, while Thrain lost an eye and his first son Thorin was wounded. In the midst of battle, Thorin lost his shield and so used an oaken tree branch to defend himself, earning the nickname Oakenshield. In their final push against enemy forces, Azog the Defiler fought and killed the Lord of the Iron Hills, only to then be confronted and beheaded by Nine's son Dain Ironfoot. The battle won, the dwarves completed their victory by stuffing the same bag of coins they received from Azog directly into his mouth before fixing his head on a stake. King Thrain, seeing the orc armies destroyed, wanted to continue the war by marching into Moria to reclaim the ancient homeland of Durin's folk, but the dwarves of other clans refused, stating the mission to avenge King Thror was complete, and they would not risk more men for a homeland that was not their own. Even Durin's folk refused to continue after Dain Ironfoot reported that he'd seen the Balrog of Moria waiting for them in the mountain. The war concluded, the Grand Dwarven Army disbanded, and the other clans returned to their own lands, while many of Durin's folk followed Lord Dain Ironfoot to the Iron Hills. The rest settled in the Blue Mountains under King Thrain and his son Thorin Oakenshield. In the aftermath of the war, the surviving orcs of the Misty Mountains fled and took refuge in the White Mountains of the south, where they survived by raiding settlements in the nearby realm of Rohan. Oppositely, the defeat of the orcs in the north gave the lands of Eriador many years of peace, though it also led to Azog the Defiler's son, Bolg, taking the leadership of Gundabad, where he spent years rebuilding their forces. For 40 years, King Thrain II reigned in the Blue Mountains, growing increasingly desperate to reclaim the riches left behind in their former kingdom. In 2841, Thrain left his son Thorin as leader of their people to embark upon a quest with a small company, including his friends Dwalin and Balin, to explore the Lonely Mountain and see if the danger was still present. Learning of their mission, the Dark Lord Sauron laid a trap, sending beasts and bad weather to eventually force them to take shelter in the forest of Mirkwood, where he sent his agents to capture Thrain in the night. Bringing him to Dol Guldur, they took his ring of power, inflicted torture, and left him to die. Meanwhile, the wizard Gandalf the Grey embarked on a quest to find the vanished king, making his way in secret through Moria to no avail. Eventually, his investigations brought him once again to Dol Guldur, where he found Thrain in a sorry state, half mad and unable to remember his own name. Nevertheless, Gandalf gathered useful information, learning that Sauron was back and seeking the remaining rings of power while posing as the necromancer of Dol Guldur. Summoning the last of his strength, Thrain gave Gandalf the key and map to Erebor before passing away. Gathering the White Council to report his findings, Gandalf urged an immediate attack to destroy Sauron and his forces while still relatively weak, but Saruman disagreed, claiming the Dark Lord posed no threat without the One Ring of Power, which long ago was carried into the sea. Swaying the council, they chose to take no action, trusting Saruman to watch over the situation and prevent it from escalating further. Despite this decision, both Gandalf and Elrond of Rivendell continued to believe Sauron and the One Ring posed a significant threat. Yet what none of them realized was that corrupt ambition already took the heart of Saruman, who'd grown jealous of the Dark Lord and wanted to replace him as ruler of Middle-earth. To this end, he used his position to keep the White Council from interfering, while he sent his agents to search for the One Ring in the Anduin River, hoping to claim it for himself. Having fled the war in the Misty Mountains, a new orc faction emerged in the White Mountains of the south, causing trouble for the lands of Rohan. Taking up the fight, King Britta led his forces to battle and inflicted a punishing defeat before returning to the capital in the mistaken belief the threat was eliminated. Yet in 2851, the orcs once again began their raids, killing Britta's son, King Walda of Rohan. Inheriting the throne and war, Walda's son Folka gathered his armies and at last eliminated the orc presence in the White Mountains. Folka then died during a boar hunt in 2864, leaving his son Folkwyne as king. 2 decades later, in 2885, King Folkwyne sent his sons Folkrid and Fastrid with an army to help support their allies in Gondor. Suffering an invasion by the Haradrim, southern Gondor was under occupation with intense fighting along the Poros River. Though the allied forces won the critical battle at the crossings of Poros, it was a bitter victory for Rohan, as both Folkrid and Fastrid were killed. A special thanks to all those who contribute to Civilization X, like Tamika the Black Wolf, Torque Frostbite, Feanor Nathan, and Commander Abadi of the JL Admiralty. If you'd like to help the channel, please go to patreon.com/civilizationx, where you can get early access to videos, vote on future content, and access the Patreon-only series, Heroes of Lore and Legend.